four primary groups. First two groups being very highly related. They're called tech adopters, and the second group are EV enthusiasts. And tech adopters typically tend to skew a little bit more male, a little bit more heavier residents on the coasts, clearly want to be consulted as it relates broadly to new technology. So probably the first on the block to get an iPad or an iPhone, look to be consulted amongst their social circle, oftentimes look to be consulted a little bit more formally. And it's as much a mindset about cool technology as it is about green. A related group are the EV enthusiasts. And I notice we're fortunate to have a person here that's been kind of in the middle of that movement for quite some time. She's a member of our customer advisory board, and that's Chelsea Sexton sitting in the front row. These folks are trying to ignite a movement towards electrification of the automotive industry. And quite frankly, we at Chevrolet feel perfectly aligned with this group because we think we've got a solution to take an electric vehicle mainstream, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. I'd say the third group are a group of influencers. And some of those folks are in market today. Some of those folks will come into market through time. Generally, these are leaders in business, environmental roles. Like also the early tech adopters, these folks are more formally looked at towards being leaders and influencers in their communities. And then lastly, but quite frankly, most importantly for us, in order to make the move towards full electrification of the auto industry, is the mass market. And those are people that today don't know too much about this space. And this is a, quite frankly, communications opportunity and a challenge for us to educate them on the benefits of electric vehicles. And what was really eye-opening to me when I started this job about 6 months ago were two things. One was how fabulous the Chevrolet Volt is in terms of its overall capabilities as a real car. And then secondly, the propensity of the mass market to be interested in doing their part as long as they don't have to sacrifice their lifestyle. And so the notion of green, regardless of your motivation, if that motivation is save money, save the planet, or help diversify my economy from reliance on petroleum, and maybe there's even a national security perspective there, regardless of what my motivation is, that overall motivation to want to help and do my part resides.
I'll give you a perspective from a development of the technology and how do we make that and what we're doing to make that affordable and make it back for make a payback for the customer. Certainly, we agree that what it's going to take to really proliferate this technology across, hundreds of thousands and millions of vehicles and customers and really make a dent in fuel consumption and make a dent in CO2 is to make it payback for the customer. They buy it, they use less gas, they spend less money per day. We start with the hybrid technology. So at Ford, for example, we've been developing hybrids for over 10, 15 years, with hybrids being on the road for about 5 years now. Over 150,000 customers, Ford customers, that we get a lot of feedback from on our hybrids. And people say, well, why are you talking about hybrids? What does it have to do with plug-ins and EVs? It really is, from a technology standpoint, the foundation for plug-ins and EVs. And if you can make the technology in a hybrid work and make it affordable, you can make it in a plug-in and an EV. Clearly, the battery takes a bigger chunk of that affordability as you go up. But a lot of learnings on our hybrids, and even from the first generation to the second generation to the third generation that we're developing today, we work on batteries, we work on inverters, we work on converters, we work on all the things that regen brakes to get the max fuel, and so on and so forth. So the technology path we're taking, and to make that affordable, going plug-in area is take that concept, and in our case, in Ford's case, is the full hybrids, power split full hybrids, and then taking that next step and make it a plug-in. So what that means is you still can do a significant amount of EV driving during the day, depending on your drive, and then will be supplemented with the engine. We call that a blended plug-in, which, again, depending on your drive, you can deplete that battery for the duration of that range. As you know, the bigger the battery, the more the range, and it's a very flexible way to design a plug-in. As we learn more about that customer, because I think one of the key things that we believe in, there is no single customer. So it's not one type of customer. We know that when we started the hybrid journey, there were the early adopters first. People didn't believe that batteries can last. People didn't believe in the technology. People didn't believe it can go on and provide them that value equation and pay back. And now there are a lot of believers. And we believe that pool of customers is going to be one of the key key folks that will want to drive a plug-in hybrid, will want to take that step up.
My experience, just a little bit about the experience with both EV and electric in general. When I left FedEx back in May, had a couple of dozen pure EVs running around the world and had several thousand pieces of electric equipment in ground support, which is all that stuff you see running around the airplanes, which is also part of my responsibility. So lots of experience with EVs. Try today to take the stance of looking at the strengths and weaknesses of the technologies and who I think will buy them. Obviously, I will bring, I think, more expertise to the fleet world and to the consumer world, but I will also kind of talk a little bit about that. Really, each technology talks about balancing strengths and weaknesses of a higher purchase cost, a fuel efficiency and energy stability, which may be important to fleets in terms of energy stability than the consumer. There's reduced emissions. We can debate tailpipe versus total carbon output. And there's a perceived social responsible value. CSR in the world of fleets, but consumers also will be out there in that space as well. There is lower maintenance, and it changes from hybrid down to pure EV. And then there is today a lower or perceived uncertain residual value in some of this technology. Range is certainly going to be an issue as well. And each purchaser will prioritize each of these benefits as they make a purchase decision. You know, the higher price and lower residual value today means you're looking at someone today who is going to put a high value on the perceived social benefit of that technology because they are still more expensive today. Energy independence, we heard about it today earlier in some of the earlier panels this morning, is a big deal because electric will reduce the fuel dependency of the U.S. and those values accrue beyond the individual purchaser. So that's why I think it's very fair to look to our government agencies to help supplement and get this technology off the ground because energy independence benefits accrue to the whole country, not just to the consumer who might see a little bit less fuel cost. Range will be a factor, and it's going to be the factor that every buyer is going to look at when they start to consider an EV, an HEV, a PHEV, or an EREV. Commercial fleets will look for return on investment. And until that return on investment is achievable, social responsibility value is going to have to play a large part. One of the things that is going to really be a factor as well in the near term is customers and fleet folks really feel this way, are being asked to pick the winning technology. I'll show my age by saying, you know, this is the beta VHS argument of old from 20 years ago, seems like forever. Mac or PC, you know, which one do I choose? Which one, you know, what's the right decision? I don't want to buy the wrong one because it'll have no value if I pick. So the result is some cases paralysis. People aren't picking either one, they're not doing anything. From an HEV standpoint, I think commercial and consumer markets will diverge in this technology.